Alright, so in this haircut we are going to do a bob with some layers. So the very first thing we're going to do is establish the outline, which is basically cut in the bob. We're going to cut in the bob, then once the bob is done, we can then address the layers after that because we will now have our new length. You're going to want to establish the length first before you cut the layers, because if you do the layers first, I've had this asked to me before, what if I cut the layers first? That's great, but if you end up cutting the bob too short, then you just cut out a lot of those layers, right? So you want to cut the outline first, so then you can address the layers from that point forward. So, as you can see, I've got a center section down the middle of the back, and I've got some A-line sections on both sides, and what I'm doing, that very first section you just saw me cut, is the guide for the new outline. And now I'm taking another section, I've combed that section down, and I'm using that previous section as the guide to know how short to cut this section. So, I'm going to continue cutting the outline. Once the outline's done, we will then continue on with our layers. Alright, so now that I've completed cutting the outline of this bob, it is now time to cut the layers. You can see I've got a center section right there, and I'm holding the section straight out and basically cutting in my guide for my very first layer, my very first section of layering through the back. Now you can see I've got another section of layering, and I'm simply just combing this second section to that very first section, which was my previous section, and that's what I'm going to carry on doing throughout the rest of the haircut. I'm going to take my sections and over-direct them simply just to the previous section. As I work further and further away from the first section, I'm not over-directing all the way to that first section, just the previous section. A question I get asked all the time, am I over-directing all the way to the very first section? No, because you're going to leave the layers too long in this particular case. You could do that, but the further you make hair travel, the longer you're leaving it. The shorter the hair travels before you cut it, the shorter you're cutting it. So in this particular case, we want to make these layers light and fluffy, so we don't want to take them and leave them too long because that's going to make them heavy. And so we are just going to over-direct these sections to only the previous section. So now that I've completed the layering on the left side, you can see it's now time to do the layering on the right side. And I'm taking sections right there, combing that to the previous section, using that previous section as my guide. This way all of the layers are the same length when you pull them straight back. Okay, so not a whole lot to explain, basically, other than the fact that I am now just over-directing each section to the previous section. Alright, so now you can see the hair has been dried. It is now time to cut the bangs. So I'm just holding the bangs in my comb right there, and then basically using the scissors to freehand cut right there, freehand cutting those bangs, doing both sides. You can hold it in your fingers, you can hold it in your comb, you can freehand it. I just kind of do a combination of all of the above. Here I'm layering the bangs just so that they're not so heavy, make them a little bit lighter. Alright, so we have come to the end of this haircut. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Any questions or comments, put them down in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching.